All right, let's dive right in. Today we're talking about a book that's, well, it's more than a book. It's an attempt at something truly impossible. We're talking about Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, a single volume of poetry that tried to capture the soul of an entire, sprawling, and deeply divided nation.
I mean, think about that for a second. Can one person really speak for an entire nation, for every single person in it? The powerful, the forgotten, the people you agree with, the people you don't? Everyone? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But that was the incredible gamble Walt Whitman took.
And you know what? He doesn't waste any time easing you into it. The book just kicks the door down with this wild opening. I celebrate myself. Okay, fine. But then he says, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Whoa. He's not just talking about himself. He's talking about you. He's saying, hey, we're made of the same stuff, literally. That's not just poetry, folks. That is a radical statement about what connects us all. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll tackle that big question. Is a voice for everyone even possible? Then we'll look at the fractured America that gave birth to this poem, try to figure out who this mysterious I is, see how Whitman basically tore up the poetry rulebook, and finally, talk about why this whole thing still hits so hard today.
Okay, first things first. To really get Leaves of Grass, you have to understand the world it came from. This wasn't some poem written in a quiet, cozy library. No way! This was a shout, a desperate, raw, urgent prayer from a nation that was literally about to tear itself apart.
I mean, just look at the timing here. He drops the first edition in 1855. The country's already at a boiling point. You've got these furious, violent debates over slavery, the Compromise of 1850, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. These weren't just political squabbles. They were ripping the country's fabric. And then boom, just 6 years later, the Civil War breaks out. Whitman was writing this on the absolute edge of a cliff.
And that is the key right there. Whitman saw all this division, all this hate, and he thought poetry could fix it. Seriously, his goal was to create a poem of America so big, so democratic, so welcoming, that it could hold all the mess and all the contradictions and somehow, almost magically, make the nation whole. He was literally trying to build a country out of words. So the big question is, how on earth do you even begin to write a poem for a whole country? Well, Whitman's big idea was to create a narrator unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Because that I you read over and over again, it's not just Walt Whitman. He creates this thing we can call the universal self. Think of the I in the poem not as a person, but more like a giant container. It's designed to hold the experiences of, well, everyone. The farmer, the president, the enslaved person, the city slicker, men, women, all of them. The idea is, when you're reading, that I is supposed to be you. It's a stand-in for every single American.
And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. This quote right here shows just how far he was willing to go. He doesn't just invite the so-called good people. He specifically says, the kept woman, sponger, thief are hereby invited. And then, incredibly for the time, the heavy-lipped slave is invited, the venereally is invited. This was scandalous. He's reaching out to the absolute outcasts of society. In his America, everybody gets a seat at the table, no exceptions.
So how does he do it? His favorite trick is what we call the catalog, these long, sprawling lists of people, jobs, and places. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a 19th century social media feed. He's just scrolling through America, showing you snapshot after snapshot of its messy, beautiful, chaotic life. Just listen to the rhythm of one of these. You get the canal boy, the bookkeeper, the spinning girl, the farmer, the lunatic, the regatta, the drover, the peddler. It just keeps going and going. And notice, no one is more important than anyone else. The lunatic gets the same poetic space as the farmer. It is pure democracy in verse. Now, to pull all this off, to give voice to this brand new democratic America, Whitman knew the old stuffy poetry from Europe just wasn't going to cut it. You can't sing a song about America using someone else's tune. A new country needed a new kind of poetry. And to get there, he basically had to tear up the rulebook and start from scratch.
So, you know traditional poetry, right? It's all about strict rhymes and a steady rhythm, like a metronome. Whitman, he just tossed all of that out. He invented what we now call free verse. It doesn't follow a strict beat. It follows the natural rhythm of how people actually talk, how they breathe. His lines are long, they're sprawling, and he uses repetition to build power, kind of like a great speech.
And believe me, he knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't an accident. When he writes this, he's basically planting a flag. It's a declaration of artistic independence for America.
He's saying, look, we're a nation of builders. We don't just copy old blueprints. We make our own styles.
And this new, free style let him write about things that were, well, completely off-limits for poetry back then. This book is physical. It celebrates the body, sweat, desire, sexuality, all of it. He talks about the madness amorous with this raw honesty that was absolutely scandalous for his 19th century readers. People were shocked.
So that brings us to today. Why does this book, written over a century and a half ago, still matter? Why are we still talking about it? Well, it's because the things Whitman was wrestling with and the very form he created are still very much alive and kicking.
I mean, his legacy is huge. For one, he basically invented modern free verse. If you read a poem today that doesn't rhyme, you're reading something that stands on Whitman's shoulders. He also gave us a blueprint for how art can be democratic, not just for the elite. He taught us how to celebrate being an individual while also being part of something bigger. And maybe most importantly, he kicked off this massive, ongoing conversation about what America even is, the conversation we're definitely still having. Towards the end of the poem, in later editions, he leaves us with this incredible, almost mystical line. He knows he's going to die, but he tells us that he won't really be gone. Instead, he's going to dissolve back into the earth, into the very grass that gives the book his title.
So what he's saying is, don't look for him in a library. He's not just some historical figure trapped on a page. His spirit, his energy, is now part of the American landscape itself. It's in the soil, it's in the air, and it's in the diverse, complicated, beautiful faces of the very people he tried to weave together into one great song.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. Whitman's big project, trying to write the poem of America, is never really finished, is it? Every single generation, including ours, has to ask the same questions he did. What does it mean to be this nation, right now? And maybe the most important question of all, whose voices are we making sure to include in our song?